topic of today's podcast is basically 10 points. 10 points by Mr. Nader, and who's also called Mr. James. And he's pretty infamous in our dialogues group. So let's start with point number one, shall we?
Yeah.
So Nader's first point was existence. There is no doubt that existence exists. Existence is of two types: possible existence and necessary existence. Every possible existence is dependent and therefore requires a necessary existence. What do you have to say about
Right.
that?
Well, I think while it may be true that contingent existences or possible existences may have a necessary existence, it hasn't been demonstrated that it is always the case. But even if we grant that that's true,
Hmm.
there is no reason to think that therefore that is a god that we must worship or something.
Hmm.
So even if we do concede that there may be a necessary existence, there is no need to assume that that necessary existence is Zeus or Allah or Jehovah or whatever. And there's
Hmm.
no reason for me to worship that necessary existence. It's just a necessary existence that caused the universe to come into being, or existence to come into existence.
Yes, I think point number one to me sounds pretty much like the contingency argument, and
Oh yeah.
it has been debunked over and over and over again. And it's so yeah,
It's
even if
like
there is
it.
a necessary existence,
Mhm.
there is no reason to believe that the necessary existence is conscious, let alone
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Right. And
And
the thing about the contingency argument is that while it may sound logically structurally sound, but there are a lot of
mm,
loopholes in it, and that's a long discussion on itself. But
yes,
the contingency argument gives me, an atheist, no reason to believe that necessary existence is something I must worship and I must dedicate my life to and I
mm,
must obey, because then you would have to show me that that necessary existence is what you claim it to be, and not just assert it. You would have to demonstrate it. Otherwise, I have every right to lack belief that this necessary existence is Allah, for example.
exactly.
And I think that's completely rational, that's completely logical, and that's a very modest stance to have.
The second point is DNA. DNA proves there is an intelligent designer. Now, I'll first give you my 2 cents on the second point. And no, DNA only proves DNA. The existence of DNA only proves that DNA exists. It doesn't mean that God exists or an intelligent designer exists. It's just like the watchmaker analogy.
Yeah.
What do
I
you
mean,
have to say?
how do you get the conclusion that DNA exists, therefore God exists? It like what we could conclude is that DNA exists, therefore the material that DNA is made from, whatever that is, that exists. But how do you leap from that to therefore God exists?
Well,
How does DNA prove there's a creator? It doesn't make sense, because, like you said, DNA just proves that DNA exists, and like that's a huge leap that would be substantiated. That would need to be substantiated instead of mere assertion.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
This is
obviously,
nothing
like if
but an assertion.
and
This
this
is
is
nothing
similar
but
to
an
the yeah, sorry.
yeah. No, I'm done. This is nothing but an assertion.
This is nothing but a bold assertion, exactly, without any demonstration for it to be true. Like DNA proves there is an intelligent designer. Well, no, it doesn't. You have to actually demonstrate that it proves that. And the third point is pretty like the conclusion I would give to the third point is pretty similar to the second point, which is I think it may be argument from personal incredulity, like argument from ignorance. I don't know how it works, therefore God. And here's the third point: the human body. The human body, sorry, the human body with its amazing functions could not have been a product of a mere coincidence. Now, this one sounds to me like, well, the human body is amazing. It functions amazingly. And I don't know how it came to be. Therefore, God.
Therefore, God nested it. That is a God of the gaps fallacy. That is also doing the watchmaker argument. Like, look at how complicated this watch is. Therefore, this cannot, this has to have a designer. But
Hmm.
if you want to go with the watchmaker argument, the maker of the watch is even more complex than the watch itself. So, what about the maker of the watch? And this can go on for infinity. So if you want to make the watchmaker argument, you would have to give us reasons. I mean, give us an explanation of the creator of the creator, and this just
Hmm.
goes on forever. So what the watchmaker argument basically does is it looks at complications and thinks that therefore there is a creator of the complications. But you have to
Hmm.
realize the creator is even more complex than the creation
Hmm.
itself. So who created the creator? And we just go back to the age-old question: who created the creator?
Exactly. And another thing about this one is the thing is, look, human body functions in a specific way. All the other life forms function in a specific way. But the thing is, we figured that out. Science figured that out. It's called evolution. Now, the problem with theists is, well, who evolved the apes? Then who evolved the fish? Who evolved eukaryotes? And where did the chain start? And for that, we have, like, scientists have a hypothesis, which is abiogenesis. Now, theists take pride in arguing against abiogenesis, and they know for a fact that it's not actually entirely proven. But the
Mhm.
problem is, if science has proven parts of it, like self-replicating molecules have been developed in the labs, and but the problem is that DNA itself has not been yet developed in the labs. And this is what theists would argue, that, hey, see, science couldn't figure it out. It means science can never figure it out, and abiogenesis is a lie. Well, no, the line of reasoning doesn't work like that.
It's like it's
Science.
it's something like this. It's something like this. You
Hmm.
are, like, for example, you are a university graduate, and then you want to show off that you are very learned. So you go to a 5-year-old and ask him or her,
Hmm.
solve a simultaneous equation. And the kid is not able to do it because he does not have the knowledge yet.
Hmm.
And because of the lack of that knowledge of the kid, you're now like, oh, ha ha ha, see, we debunked you can never know. But that's not
Hmm.
true. Once he gets to university level knowledge, once he gets to the university level, he will know
Hmm.
how to do simultaneous equations. In fact, he will know more than how to do simultaneous equations. He will do logarithm equation, mathematics. He will do trigonometry. He will do statistics. He will do probability
Hmm.
maths. So just because we don't know something now doesn't mean we can never know. And there is no shame in not knowing. It takes a lot of courage to come and admit that you don't know instead of
Exactly.
pretending like you know everything, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, and this is what the Dunning and Kruger effect is all about. People who do not know much, they pretend or they claim to know a lot, and people who actually know a huge chunk of science or anything in that matter, they would tell you that, oh man, I'm not sure. They may be experts in the field, who know more than me. Maybe you should go and talk to them. So
And
this is what Dunning and Kruger demonstrated to be the case.
the thing about science and the scientific enterprise is that it is a continuous process. It's always evolving, it's always improving. New theories are coming,
Mm.
new evidences are trying to be, we are trying to find evidences for new theories. And it's a process, and it's a it's a process that is continuously developing. Just like, the analogy of the child. Right now
Mm.
he's in grade 2, then he will go to grade 3. Just because our scientific tools are incapable of answering some questions now, it doesn't mean that they will never be able to. And just because we are unable to answer some questions now, doesn't then logically follow that therefore God exists. That is the God of the gaps fallacy. I
Yes.
don't know, therefore God.
Yes. I don't know. Science doesn't know. Therefore, God. And that's
Yeah,
exactly what the
science doesn't know,
God
therefore
of the
God.
gaps fallacy is. All right. Point number 4 is pretty much like point number 1. I don't know why James even bothered putting this one in. So here it goes. The universe could only have come to existence if there was a cause or a starting point, which could only be triggered by something that independent, and this again leads us to necessary existence. First of all, the problem with this point is independent. uh, if he was here, I would have asked him what independent means, but I think what he means is that the first cause was independent of any uh, other causes, like non-contingent necessary cause. uh, and the problem is we don't know what that cause was to begin with, let alone being it a necessary cause. A good hypothesis is it was singularity. Everything, the Big Bang, space time, matter, energy, they all are a product of, they all were in a single point, which is called singularity, and that expansion started at one point. Started wouldn't be a perfect word because time itself started at some point. So we gotta get our heads wrapped around it. But here's the problem: it leads us to necessary existence. Well, if even if we consider a very good hypothesis by science, which is singularity, uh, it doesn't mean that singularity itself was necessary. Again, it's a bold assertion without demonstration. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think our knowledge of the universe stops at Planck time, if I'm not mistaken. We do not
Hmm.
have knowledge beyond that yet. So, what happened before the universe? What was there before the universe? What triggered the Big Bang? If we assume the Big Bang model is true, what triggered the Big Bang? This is a question for further inquiry. And right now, with our tools, we are not able to answer these questions. But who knows? Maybe in like about 50 years or 100 years, those questions might also be, we will, and I believe we will be developed enough to
Hmm.
start investigating what was there prior to the universe. But even without our even without advanced scientific tools, there are models proposed that show mathematically how the universe could come into existence on its own. For example, Alexander Vilenkin, he wrote this paper. I'll give the link to
Hmm.
the paper where he showed that in a closed system, a universe can come into existence on its own without being caused by anything. So I think that's a definitely interesting read for anybody who wants to look
Oh,
into.
definitely,
I will
yes.
get I will give Ryan the link and he will link it in the description,
I'll add it into the
and go down,
description of
check
this
it
video.
out. And interestingly, Vilenkin's article, I mean this closed system part, it was in response to the Kalam cosmological
Hmm.
argument. He mentions it in his paper that theists use, so Vilenkin, he helped um, make a theory called the Borde-Good-Vilenkin
Hmm.
theorem, and this has been used by theists to show that a universe, like there has to be a beginning point to any sort of conceivable universe you can think of.
Hmm.
And he mentions the fact that theists often use this to, in their arguments, philosophical arguments, to show that God exists. But he provided a model that
Hmm.
can demonstrate how universe can come into existence without any cause, and it can do it itself.